Hello everyone, welcome to Indian Polity Mastery. I am Gautaman Mohan, and in this video I am going to discuss about the significance of Article 74 of the Indian Constitution. So when we are discussing about Indian Constitution, especially in connection with the functions of the President and also the functions of the Council of Ministers, always this particular article came into that particular discussion, that is the Article 74 of the Constitution. So now let us try to understand what is the importance of this article, why it is very significant in the administration aspects. Let us try to understand that. So if you look at Article 74 in the Constitution, you can see that these are the important provisions mentioned in the Constitution. There shall be a council of ministers with the Prime Minister at the head to aid and advise the President, who shall, in the exercise of his functions, act in accordance with such advice. So here comes three important bodies or three important institutions are discussed here. One is the Council of Ministers, another one is the Prime Minister, and another one is the President. So everything is actually in connection with the President. In relation to the President only, we are mentioning about this article. So which means there shall be a council of ministers with the Prime Minister at the head to aid and advise the President. So President's actions, if you look at, you can see that it has the backing of the Council of Ministers, or you can say that the President is functioning based on the recommendation and the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. Provided that President may require the Council of Ministers to reconsider such advice. So if an advice is given by the Council of Ministers, the President can actually request them to reconsider that. But after the reconsideration, if the Council of Ministers are giving the advice again, then the President has to accept that, and the President shall act in accordance with the advice tendered after such reconsideration. So very important. So President has the power to require the Council of Ministers to reconsider such advice, but either generally or otherwise, and the President shall act in accordance with the advice tendered after such reconsideration. That means after the reconsideration, the President shall act in accordance with that. And there is also one more provision which is included in that. That is the question whether any or if so, what advice was tendered by ministers to the President shall not be inquired into any court. Very important. So in any court, it cannot be discussed. Whatever the advice tendered by the Council of Ministers, it shall not be inquired into any court. The advice tendered by the ministers to the President shall not be inquired into any court. That is important, very important. In court, we cannot actually discuss the advice tendered by the Council of Ministers. The President may require the Council of Ministers to reconsider such advice, and the President shall act in accordance with the advice tendered after such reconsideration. So very important. So which means almost all the actions or the functions of the President, you can see that it has the backing of the Council of Ministers. Why it has that backing? It's because we are living in a democratic country. In a democratic country, the people elect their representatives, and our representatives form the government. Here also it is the same case. Our representatives, the MLAs or MPs, they form the government, and the Prime Minister is also a person who is actually elected by the people only. So they have more authority. They are the de facto power, or they enjoy the real power, and the President enjoy the nominal power, or you can say that the President is the nominal head or the de jure head. On the other hand, the Council of Ministers with the head of the Prime Minister is the de facto head or the real head. And there are certain important amendments which are actually connected with this particular article. That means if you look at the status of the Indian Constitution before the 42nd Amendment, which came in the year 1976, which is also known as the mini constitution, and there was a provision which said that the Council of Ministers aids the President in exercising his powers, but it did not provide a provision which makes it binding on the President. So it was not binding on the President. There was no mention about that. It was not binding on the President. There was mention about the provision which said that the Council of Ministers aids the President in exercising his powers, but it was not binding. But after the 42nd Amendment, it was actually binding. It made it binding. And if you look at the 44th Amendment, you can see that the president can ask the council of ministers to reconsider their advice, but the president is bound to act according to the advice given by the council of ministers after reconsideration. These two articles, if you look at the 42nd and the 44th amendments, not articles, the amendments, it actually improved the power, it strengthened the power of the council of ministers in relation with the president. Now in article 74, if you go back to the history means the constitutional discussion regarding this particular article, that is article 74. While discussing about it, it was actually article 61 of the draft constitution, okay, and it was discussed in the year 1948 December 30th, and three important proposals came into being in connection with the article. It was a proposal to delete the phrase which talks about with the prime minister at the head, so that was rejected. Then another proposal was there to allow president to use his or her discretionary power without the cabinet's aid. That was also rejected because we know why the president is acting on the advice tendered by the council of ministers, because our government's format, the functioning format or the administration format is rooted in the democratic principles. That is why. Then the selection of cabinet ministers and restricting the numbers. So all these provisions were actually rejected. These amendments or these proposals were rejected, and we got the present format of the article 74. The main thing that we need to understand is, while we discuss about president's functions and executive actions and everything, there is always a mention of this particular article, that is article 74 of the Indian Constitution, which actually give more strength for the council of ministers to aid and advise the president, and the president is acting or president's actions are based on this advice tendered by the council of ministers. Very important. If you look at the ordinance making power also, the advice, the recommendation is actually coming from the council of ministers, and they initiate the process, and the president is the one who give the assent and promulgate that. So very important aspect that we have discussed today. So hope you have understood the details regarding article 74, the significance of article 74. So if you like the video, please subscribe our channel and also enable the bell icon so that you will get more videos connected with the Indian polity. So this is a channel which exclusively discuss about the Indian polity aspects and Indian constitution provisions. So please do subscribe and enable the bell icon. Thank you.